Welcome to the second episode of the Mind and Body Podcast. I'm joined with the infamous Amber Boyer. How are you? Doing well?
Infamous. That I feel like is a little bit stretched of a term, but
Uh,
yes, I am
I'm,
good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Really excited about
Awesome.
diving into our series on strength training. I think it's going to be super fun. Today, we're actually talking about not just strength training, but the benefits, particularly of strength training. And so
Mm,
let's jump right in. I want to start with a quote that I heard from the co founder of Nike. And this is basically like their mission statement. And I just love this. He said, "If you have a body, you are an athlete." I love that.
mm, I
And
love that.
I'm sure some people will react strongly. It's like, no, I'm not an athlete. Well, surely not everyone is a pro athlete, but everybody has a body. And that body was created to move. So whether you're young or old, your lifestyle depends on how well your body works. And an
Right.
athlete, one of the things, a pro athlete particularly, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to train their body to perform optimally. Now, what we can do is we can learn from how they approach that type of training, and we can take some of those fundamental principles, apply it to our life and our training, and we can see ourselves improve and become a better version of ourselves. And that's really
Yeah.
one of the main things that we're trying to do here at Mind and Body is we're trying to help people build strong minds, strong bodies. And one of the methods that we can use or modalities for becoming a better version of ourselves is strength training. And I would say that strength training is almost kind of a fundamental because
Absolutely.
it's like it affects really everything, every other thing that you do. Hypertrophy, it can affect your speed training, endurance training. Strength training is just one of those fundamentals that everyone needs to be acquainted with and pursue, especially if they want to experience some of these benefits. Now, I want to start though with just talking a little bit about what strength training is, because sometimes the way people
Yeah.
talk about it, it kind of bleeds into different like modalities, like maybe just like general conditioning. Some people think they'll tie strength training and endurance training together, which again, there is a strength um, adaptation that occurs when you do endurance training for sure. When you do hypertrophy, you're probably going to be gaining strength, but the modality itself, and I don't know if you like formulas, Amber.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I
formulas,
saw I saw your notes on that. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's actually a really good thing to bring up."
I love formulas, but sometimes the formulas add more questions because you're like, what do you mean by these certain
Yeah.
things? And it can get confusing. But here's a formula that you can think of when it comes to strength training. What is strength training? Strength, it equals mass times distance. So mass being the amount of weight lifted. And typically with strength training, you're trying to challenge your body. So it's as heavy as possible with good form.
Right.
And you're just taking that weight from A to B. So you're trying to
Right.
just lift it all the way through. It doesn't really matter how fast you do it. It's just if you did it, you accomplished your goal. And let's say I'm trying to train for strength, and normally it's in a rep range that's more limited. If you go much higher over, you know, some people will still consider 5 to 8 rep range still in that strength modality, but you get much
Hmm.
over 8 into the 10 to 20 rep range or the 20 to 30 rep range. Well, now you're training in a different type of style. You're not really trying to get as much just stronger. You're actually trying to develop the size of the muscle or the endurance of the muscle. But if you're strictly trying to say, I'm trying to get as strong as possible, then you're going to do usually a smaller rep range, as heavy as weight as possible that you can do with good form and going from A to B. It's pretty simple. Some people get confused
Yeah.
they confuse strength training with power. And here's a formula for power that's helpful. Power equals force times velocity. So it's the amount of force that you can produce. That's similar to strength, but what
Hmm.
makes it different than strength is how fast you accomplish that move. So when you're
Right.
training for power, when you're doing hypertrophy, somebody will say, "Hey, train to failure or close to it to produce the most amount of hypertrophy." When it
Right.
comes to power, you actually train to a failure of power. So it's like how many reps can I do this with the same amount of exertion, the same amount of speed? When that speed starts to drop, you say, okay, that's the end of the set. I'm not trying to go to
Right.
absolute failure. I'm just trying to train for speed. And so power can be, you can actually do power with just body weight, and you're trying to be really explosive. And the moment you start to feel yourself slow down, you're like, oh, I'm not moving as fast as I was. Okay, then that's when you end, and you want to see yourself grow in progressive overload is either increasing reps or maybe even the weight that you have. So there's some similarities between strength and power, but strength is pretty simple. It's like trying to lift really heavy weights, and you can do it in different ways. There's different strength training regimens that you can do, but it's pretty simple. I'm trying to go to A to B, lifting really heavy weights. I'm trying to progress in the amount of weights. But lifting heavy weights and gaining in strength has tremendous benefits, both physically and mentally. And so we want to
Indeed.
just rattle off a couple of those for you guys who are listening
Yes.
in. Maybe you're sitting there on the couch. You're like, okay, John, Amber, I want you to convince me to get off the couch, to lay aside my bag of potato chips and
Oh my
start the
gosh.
strength
Yes.
training. Because maybe I just described something that sounds terrible to you. You're like, why would I put myself under a lot of weight?
All
That
this
doesn't sound fun.
grueling work. Right.
Yeah. So what's the benefits? Well, here is the first one. First benefit, number one, is it changes the way you look, feel, and perform. Now,
Hmm.
certainly other modalities can accomplish this as well. Like hypertrophy, particularly, will change your aesthetics probably more than any modality because you're
True.
focusing on that muscle size.
Right.
But strength training definitely does change the way you look. If you get under heavy weight consistently and you lift, it's going to change your body composition. And
100%.
I think everybody, and I'll let you interact here a little bit, Amber. I mean, I think if everyone's honest, when people get into working out, one of the core motivations is like, I want to look good. And that's
I
okay.
want to look different. Yeah. That's
Exactly.
one of the biggest things I absolutely hear the most. Working at a gym, sometimes I have meetings with people who are in, they have questions about the gym, questions about getting started. They don't know where to go. And I'm like, okay, like, what's your goal? Like, tell me a little bit about what you want to accomplish. So we dig into their reasoning, because if you don't have a solid reason, you're not going to do it for very long. And I hear it often. I just want to tone up. I want to tone up. Like, I want to lose weight and I want to tone up. And I'm like, okay, do we know what that entails? Like, oh, well, I'm going to jump on the HIIT classes and do treadmill work and all this jazz. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about how those actually affect your body, versus how you think they affect your body. And cardio does not build muscle. It helps with, obviously, cardiovascular health, lung capacity, things like that. And it's very good for you in many ways. And it is a needed mode of movement. But strength training and hypertrophy training, depending on their particular goals, is where it's at. Moving weights. That's the only way you're going to gain that muscle mass and get that quote unquote toned look. And people just want to feel good about themselves. They want to look in the mirror and they want to feel good about what they see. And not a lot of people feel that way. So what do they have to do about it? Like, how do they get themselves motivated to do the hard work and show up? And what are the benefits? And that's literally why you and I are here today, is like to
Yeah,
explain that.
exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So like you hit it well when you say like strength training and hypertrophy, two modalities that actually work really well together. You can try to do them at the same time. A lot of times it's good to do kind of that block training where you do strength training, then it moves into a hypertrophy phase. I love this
Correct. Yep.
because if you do strength training, you're not necessarily going to get bigger muscles from strength training. Now, if you're a newbie, yeah, most definitely you're going to get bigger from pretty much anything you do. I mean, just newbie muscles, you're going to see some good growth. But a lot of this, and you know this as becoming a nutritionist yourself, a lot of the size gains comes from what you're eating, the nutrition. But if you combine good nutrition with strength training, especially at the beginning, you're going to gain good muscle. And one thing that I like to do is I'll do a hypertrophy season where I'm just focusing on muscle size, trying to gain as much size as possible. Then I follow it by a strength training session where I'm trying to get those muscles that are now bigger, neurologically trained to produce more force, and therefore be able to lift heavier weights. And then when I get those muscles stronger, neurologically stronger, they may have gained some size, they may have gained some muscle maturity, as they say in the literature. But what I can do is I can go back to hypertrophy, and now I have that same muscles size, but now they're stronger. So now when I go back to hypertrophy, I'm moving heavier loads. I'm able to sustain more volume because there's that endurance strength as well, which is going to produce greater hypertrophy. And you see how this could be like a cyclical thing, to where if you do this right, you're becoming bigger, you're becoming stronger. But just strength training alone, for most people, they're not trying to look like a bodybuilder. They're not trying to be as jacked as possible. They're just like, man, I like to have a little bit more muscle mass, like to move better, feel better. You know, it might be if I go to the beach, I want to look good, have that beach body or whatever. This will change the way you look, the way you feel. You mentioned that a little bit, and the way that you perform. I like the way that Andy Galpin put it, PhD in kinesiology, I believe. He would say that strength training helps you look good, feel good, play good. And I like that statement.
Yes.
And what he means by feel good is not just psychologically, but actually the way your body just interacts with everyday activity changes.
Yeah, and your energy levels. Oh my goodness, your energy levels are significantly different.
Yeah, energy. I think about, like, when you do strength training, you think so much about form and execution. So when you go to pick up anything, you could tell when someone's a lifter, like just the way if they're really bowing their back to pick up boxes,
with the legs,
you're like,
not with your back.
yeah, exactly. It's like strength training, bro. Strength training is what you need.
I literally have this video that I took. I had to move a large filing cabinet for my parents. And I don't remember why, but for some reason I couldn't remove the drawers. So I had to move this. It must have weighed 250 pounds, at least close to. And I remember adjusting it. I took a video adjusting it and moving it, and I sent it to my powerlifting friend. And I was like, this is why we lift. I just moved this on my own.
That is awesome.
With perfect form. It was great. Video? I do.
We need to post this on social media. Like when we launch this podcast, we are going to launch that video sometime and say, what more understanding of why she did this? Why listen to the podcast? That's
why
awesome.
does she look like such a dork moving that piece of furniture? Well, you know what? I didn't pull my back, so
yeah. You should do a strong man competition. Like I could see, those big boulders, I'm talking about, like picking them up.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Those could be like 200 or some of them like 400 pounds. It's crazy, but that's really cool.
Yeah.
What were we talking? Functional muscle. That's
functional muscle. Mm-hmm.
That's next level, Amber. That's probably next level. Probably scared half our audience away. Like, nope, not gonna do it. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously though, it helps, and like where you'll see this where other people are just like, whew, I need to sit down. I just feel wiped from just doing everyday stuff. You do it and you're like, what? That was no problem. I mean, people literally have to take breaks from just carrying in groceries from their car. Right. They're just like, I'm dead. I'm done. Like, I need to binge watch Netflix for the next hour. It's like, yeah, we really are out of shape. And our generation, more than any generation, has been the most out of shape. And of course,
Yeah.
and not trying to make anybody feel shame or guilt who are listening in, but of course, like obesity and things of like that is on the rise. And strength training can be one of the best ways to actually decrease this trend, but also go the other way and start to see the whole quality of life improve, look good, feel good, and then performance. And then if you're an athlete, of course, if you're on that level, strength training is going to benefit you immensely in just about every type of training that you would do. So that's the first point. The second point is that it improves bone health and reduces risk of injury. This is so
Hmm.
huge. I remember, I don't know if you've heard of Wolff's Law. Have you heard of Wolff's Law?
It
Basically,
sounds familiar.
somebody's going to research this and get like a more specific answer, but basically, it comes down to when you just put heavy weight, whatever you're lifting, whether it's bench press or squats or deadlifts or other lifts, your bones actually get denser. Like
Oh,
your
yes, in
bone,
order to support the amount of force coming down on the body.
exactly. So there's an
Yes.
adaptation that occurs um, to just the structure of your body. Your bones get better. And I remember when I started lifting heavier weights, like my shoulders actually broadened, and it wasn't just
Mm.
because I gained more muscle. It, like skeletally,
You
there was
gained
a
more,
thickening of the
more bone
bones.
mass. Mm.
Exactly, and it certainly is good to preserve that bones. And as you age, the density of bones you can get frail, and so it's definitely good to kind of as a preventative measure. But it also goes the other way where your bones are getting stronger, um, as well as your ligaments. Like and this is why it's so important to train heavy too, because a lot of people, their joints and ligaments kind of hurt, and so they're like,
Yes.
okay, well, I'm not going to do any of that type of stuff because that's really going to hurt me. Now, granted, if you have an injury and you're experiencing pain, then go to therapy, go to the right type of people to make sure that you're seeing progress there in health. So I want to be
Yeah.
careful how I say this, but you actually can. Um, One thing that therapist is going to try to do is one, they're going to try to get whatever muscle group or joint through the full range of motion so
Yes.
that blood gets to that area so that actually it begins to heal appropriately, as well as they're going to begin to try to put as much weight as they can safely to strengthen that area as well. And strength training, if done right with good form, actually can reverse some injuries that you may have had for years. You're like, well, I just have bad knees. I have a
Yeah.
cool story, but I didn't know if you have any input on this particular point with as a personal
I was
trainer, what
actually
you're
gonna
trying to do.
say. I was actually gonna say I actually don't have a personal story on that one, um, which I'll keep it short because I want to hear yours. But for me, 2 years ago, I actually had um, three bulging discs in my low back due to an accident that I was in, and my chiropractor and physical therapist, like obviously we had to go through like some mobility stuff and some adjustments that I had to go to therapy for 3 months. But once I got to through a certain point of therapy, my doctor was like, okay, now as you continue this therapy, I need you lifting heavy weights. We've got to get your core a lot stronger. We have to get your glutes a lot stronger so that all the muscles surrounding these very critical discs in your low back, all of those ligaments, those the joints between each vertebrae, he's like, we have to support those, and so you have to
Mhm.
strength train safely. But and they walked me through like some specific stuff to work on, um but that was game changing for me because at one point I could literally not roll out of bed without being in excruciating pain. And so strength training and then therapy is what got me to the point that I could get back to normal life.
That's really
So,
fascinating.
yeah. Wait,
That's
so what
cool.
was yours?
Mine was just stupid.
Oh,
um, so like there was just a bunch of guys. Have you ever seen one of those really big balls? Like you could see them at
Uh-huh.
youth camps, like playing big ball volleyball or something like that. Well, we were doing
Uh-huh.
all types of stuff, and I wasn't like an official gymnast, but I used to do like back flips, front flips, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff. Yeah,
That's
the part of me
awesome.
you didn't know, right?
I did not. I am fascinated.
Yeah. So I used to like, you know, those gymnasts that do all that floor type stuff, backflips, and I'm not trying to say that I was like amazing. I'm probably a lot lamer than I thought, but I really enjoyed it. But there was a big ball, and it's like I'm gonna I'm gonna do a forward flip right over this big ball, no
Oh
problem.
goodness.
And I did clear the big ball, which was cool. But because I had to jump higher and the way I was rotating, I had to rotate fast at the end to kind of land the front flip. And the way my legs hit the ground, or I should say my feet hit the ground, it just destroyed both of my knees. Like I'm pretty sure that I ripped some things in my knees. And so for the rest of the time that I was where I was at, in order to go upstairs, I had to like grab the handrail and like pull myself up and like straighten my legs, each leg individually. It was just horrible. And I don't
Oh
know.
my goodness.
I was I should have went in and say, "Hey, I think I have a problem," but I was just like, "It'll get better." And so I
Typical. All
try
right.
to train around. Yeah, right, exactly. I tried to, and I really thought like because I played football and I had some football injuries. I thought maybe like, okay, my powerlifting is done. Like I'm not going to do squats again because
Mm,
I was pretty messed up. Then I started doing some reading about how heavy lifting can actually improve. Of course, I was very careful. I started off slow, but I slowly, just really through squatting a lot with lots of depth, really carefully, I was able to build back my just joint knee strength. Now, sometimes that doesn't work. Like you actually have to have surgery, like to
sure.
fix
Yeah,
it.
depending on the extent of your injury, for sure.
Right. So evidently, I was able to actually just heal up appropriately. I'm not even sure. I never went, so I'm not sure all that went on. But my squats, I got from like doing like pretty lightweight, full range motion to lifting pretty heavy in
Mhm.
squats. And now I'm just a big believer in like, hey, I want to make sure that I don't, oh, I have an injury. Let me just like let it stay static. No, actually, you want to try to get it moving, get blood to
Yes.
that area. And if you're able to safely with, therapy recommendations, try to get under some heavy weight. But it
Yeah.
really does improve. But I look back at that story and like, so dumb. So
Epic.
dumb. Yeah. Epic. Wow, that's a
Epic.
really nice spin on that, Amber. I appreciate that. Such a good fit. So it changes the way you look and feel. It improves your
Yep.
bone health, reduces risk of injury. There's more we could say there, but to keep things moving, number three, it actually facilitates weight loss, or it can facilitate weight loss.
Yes.
Thoughts on this, Amber? We'll start with you.
Yeah, no, this is a big one. I think for the more I've learned about strength training and like I essentially did self experimentation. Um, I actually did not have a gym membership. I've been a personal trainer for 14 months now. So I'll admit I'm very new to the industry compared to many people. Um, I did not have a gym membership for years. Um, when I was 22, so 6 years ago, I got a gym membership to Planet Fitness and I used the treadmill. And then I shifted over to the YMCA and I used a couple of machines and the treadmill. And I saw no results whatsoever to the goals that I had because I had no idea what I was doing. When I actually got into the industry and started learning about the benefits of strength training and lifting heavy and things like that and challenging my body to like push beyond what I thought I could do. Talk about significant body composition changes and weight loss. Paired up with a proper diet, which is a whole story in and of itself. I lost 14 pounds of fat in like 3 months, which for some people, they're going to be like, that's not a lot. We'll come back around to that for a hot second. I gained 4 pounds of lean mass, which is a significant amount of muscle mass for a female, in that amount of time. And I learned like my body composition just completely shifted. I was able to fit into clothing that I haven't been able to fit in a long time. And if you look at like weight on the scale, the weight didn't shift that much. When you look at inches lost for lean muscle built and fat loss, like much bigger numbers than I expected to see. And that's where the body composition and the toning kind of comes in. That was just the biggest shift, like much more than I ever thought it would be. And this is something that I talk with my clients about a lot, because they'll come to me and they'll be like, the scale hasn't shifted that much. And I'll be like, oh, okay, well, let's calculate fat loss, versus muscle mass. And let's do your numbers, and we'll go over the numbers. And I'll be like, well, your scale hasn't shifted that much, but you've lost 10 inches over your entire body. Like, that's massive. That's massive.
Wow.
And the more muscle that you build, the more calories that your body needs in order to sustain life, right? So your basal metabolic rate goes up, which is the calories needed in order to live day to day. And therefore, the more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn, it usually ignites a fat loss.
Yes. Yeah, that's such a good point. So somebody who's like a nerd on this idea of like weight loss, of say, calories in, calories out type of thing. That's the fundamental. And we totally do agree with that. Though there are certain things that you can do to facilitate your body actually doing that. So like if you raise your metabolic rate, then you're able to eat more calories because your body's just in burning more calorie mode type of a thing.
Yep.
So it affects calories in, calories out calculations. So yeah, we agree with the fundamental of that calories in, calories out, or energy balance, as some would put it. But there's ways, and we'll probably get into this more when we talk about nutrition and weight loss in the future. But I do think this is so good. Like, actually, I don't know if you agree with this, Amber. So feel free to say this is dumb. But hey, I'd love to hear your input. If I had a choice, if I was trying to help somebody lose weight, and I only had like one thing they could do, like when it comes to training, I would dial in the nutrition and I would have them do strength training. That's what 100%. I would have them do. I wouldn't have them do cardio and just dialing in the nutrition, because have you ever heard of the phrase skinny fat?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of that? So
yes, I have.
If you
and it's
don't,
a very, very accurate statement.
Yeah, if you don't train hard for your body, like when it comes to like developing your muscles and even the neuromuscular system, like training that, which the only thing that really trains your neuromuscular system is strength training, because there is that systemic fatigue that occurs when you lift really heavy weights. And when that happens, that type of training, not only does it produce muscle size, but it's almost like a domino effect of not only does it raise your metabolic rate, things of that nature, but it's going to help you gain muscle. You're going to be burning more fat, but also you're going to be a little bit more pleased with what you look like when you lose that fat, because you've gained a different type of composition. Whereas If you just do cardio and diet, I mean, you have muscle on your body, but even muscles cannot be toned. So you're just kind of saggy, and you're just like that skinny fat idea. Nobody wants that.
They can look loose and flat.
Exactly. So strength training can be a huge help to that. So it facilitates weight loss. And the next one is that it increases cardiovascular health. Now, I never really thought about this until actually recently, but you think about it. You do some heavy deadlifts or squats or really anything.
Your heart rate skyrockets.
Yeah. It goes
Ah,
way high. And though I don't think it's necessarily a complete replacement for like, you know, what do they call it? Type type 2 cardio.
V2
Um,
cardio.
V2, thank you. I was trying
Yeah.
type 2. This is like diabetes here. Type 1, type
I
2.
was thinking the same thing.
Um,
I was like, is he about to talk about diabetes?
yeah. Changing the subject, John. Changing the subject. Yes, but like I think cardio is important. And I think that it's
Yeah.
a good part of being healthy. But the nice thing about strength training is that you will get some of that cardiovascular training and health just by performing strength training, 2 to 4 times in that week. It's really good, especially the more you progress, the more heavy you lift. You're going to have a hard time doing this. Actually, one way it occurred to me, it's just kind of funny, it occurred to me that it actually does this when I did like a heavy lift and I was like, I'm going to do a video about this heavy lift. And I was like, hey, I want to tell you something. And I was like breathing heavy. And I was like, all right, I'm going to
Yes.
record this. I'm going to wait 2 to 3 minutes and then record because I can't even talk. I'm totally dead.
Let me
So,
loop back to this.
yeah, I'll come back. But I don't know. Maybe it'd been more persuasive if I was breathing heavy. They thought I was more hardcore if I did this.
Fair. But if
Anything
you
you
can't
want to say
talk, you
about
can't talk.
exactly. To keep things moving, I'm going to tap through a couple of these because I really want to get to our last point when it comes to last 2 points when it comes to the physical benefits. So
Yeah.
it develops balance and coordination. I know you wanted to speak to this. One thing that I wanted to note is that a lot of times people will go in and they'll try to train their balance and they'll do balance
Mm-hmm.
movements. Totally for it. I think it's a great idea, especially depending on people's muscular imbalances. But
Right.
just doing straight strength training does tremendous amount of work for balance. Like I don't think you really need to do squats on a Buso ball to gain that balance. Like I'm
Right.
actually personal opinion. I'm not a big fan of Buso ball squats. I think they kind of look maybe cool, maybe, but I
I think you have to
really
have
like.
a purpose behind them, like a deep purpose to be doing
Have you
them.
ever seen somebody Buso ball squats while doing some type of curls? Like they would squat down, come up, curl, or stand on one foot on the Buso ball and try to curl. And they're like, I'm trying to activate my core while doing, bicep
I don't
curls.
know that I've ever seen that.
You've never seen that? It's
I don't
actually
think I
become
have.
quite popular in some of the stabilization training. And here's
Hmm.
the thing. You're not maximizing your ability to do curls. You don't
No,
you don't have a good footing. You're not
there's
maximizing
no
your
way.
ability to do squats. Or if you want to do core work, you're not maximizing your ability to do core work. So you're doing all of these different ideas at once and you're doing none of them well. Not a good idea.
Ooh,
My
that's a
point,
really solid point. You're doing all these ideas, but none of them well.
yes, yes. And
Yes.
you'll hear more of that from me because it's one of my pet peeves. Because I'll see somebody do something like, okay, that looks really cool, but you're actually not training. This is all like junk volume. Way to go, type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that just regular strength training, I mean, unless you're training for like how to train in an earthquake, like you don't need to do squats on a Buso ball, but just doing it flat on the ground, on the floor, just doing it there, that's perfect. And it's going to build your balance and coordination for everyday life, right? I think so. What
Right.
do you?
Don't mind me dying over here thinking about somebody trying to strength train for an earthquake.
We should do
No,
a course though. Earthquake training. Oh,
it would probably sell quite well. Uh,
it, probably.
it it would get labeled right under other Hollywood exercise programs. No,
Ooh.
I'm with you on this. They're definitely don't get me started. That's an episode in and of itself. I think that there definitely has to be a very specific functional reason that you're working with a Bosu ball. Say, like, I know some people who come into the gym that I work at that they are ballet dancers, aerialists, or like they don't work for Cirque du Soleil, but like a company similar to that. That Bosu ball work makes sense for them. But generically for your average person, I agree. It's very pointless in many ways. So yeah, I got you on
Episode
that one.
3, Buso ball training. That's what we'll do next week. Just kidding.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did you want to add to the coordination balance? I know that you work with some older clients,
I
so
do.
I didn't know if you were going to speak to that.
Yeah, no, there is, there's so many things that are super crucial depending on age or injury, honestly. When it comes to coordination and balance, that you have to nail down that before you can even really get into strength training, because otherwise you're going to get injured, right? A majority of my clientele that are on the older side, I do a lot of functional movement balance work with them, and mobility work with them to strengthen up their joints in order for them to be able to handle heavier loads when we do strength training. And I'll usually, I do a combination work. I'll usually work on a little bit of that balance and coordination, and then we get into the strength training kind of stuff. And depending on where they're at in their fitness journey, each one is a little bit different. But I have several clients that's the big thing. I have a couple clients who have knee injuries, and so balance work on injured knee is super crucial in order for us to then be able to do things like squats and stuff like that, because we need to strengthen all of those muscles with just body weight around the knee joint before I can load it up and be able to do stuff like
Yeah.
barbell squats. Yep.
No, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good coming from you, since you're working with people like this every day that really come in with muscular imbalances, injuries, maybe just a decline in balance and coordination, which is typical as you age. Like you could start to feel like, oh, I'm actually losing my coordination, or it may start with like losing some of that athleticism, but then it's like, which some of the fundamental athleticism is that coordination and balance, right? And you start to lose that. Strength training and conditioning can help with that, definitely. So I'm going to just touch on this one as a point, because we're going to talk about it when it comes to how strength training helps your mentality, but it does reduce your stress levels. Strength training can help reduce stress levels by releasing endorphins and actually several other hormones as well, which has this mood boosting effect. They call it the happy hormone, and just when your muscles contract, especially when it's not just like a localized fatigue, like I'm doing bicep curls, I'm squeezing my bicep, that's great. But when I'm lifting really heavy weights and there's a whole lot more musculature that is contracting, the hormones that are released from that type of contraction is a much higher level, and produces more of that happy hormones. So it can definitely relieve stress. And I was going to hop to the next one, unless you had anything you wanted to say on that one.
No,
Okay. So the next one I know we wanted to spend some time on was it promotes vitality and longevity for life. Go ahead, take it from here, Amber Boyer. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I throw you off by the full name.
No, it cracked me up. This one is probably one of the biggest reasons that I, between this and helping reduce anxiety, is one of the biggest reasons I personally got into fitness. If you think about the fact that your typical everyday kind of movements, how it affects you, like you said earlier, bringing in groceries, how many people are winded by bringing in the groceries? How many people have to make multiple grocery trips because they can't carry all of the heavy groceries? Walking up the steps, playing with your kids, you can't keep up with them. You're winded, or you actually physically can't even move like that. Like, right. I can't tell you the amount of people that I know, and this is not to shame anybody, but just to bring the reality into perspective, the amount of people that I know that can't get onto the ground because they can't get up. by themselves.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine, honestly, I'm not a mom yet, but I can't imagine being a mom who physically cannot sit on the floor with her child, but has to sit on the couch because she knows that I can't get off the floor, not without a lot of discomfort or pain. The amount of people who can't pick up their grandchildren, like, because they physically cannot lift even a 30-pound toddler. And if you think about it, working on these things now, getting yourself physically fit to be able to just live life, like just enjoy life more, and be able to not be in pain, be able to have the energy, be able to do the things with your spouse or your friends, like going on hikes or whatever is your thing to do, that you don't have to miss out on something because you're not physically capable of doing it. That in and of itself not only is a physical longevity and vitality, but also a mental one of like relieving yourself of the mental anguish of not being able to do something and being able to be like, oh yeah, I can do that now. Like, that is just incredibly powerful. And I don't think enough people actually think through that when they think about going to the gym. Like, most of the time people are focused on just like physical appearance when they go to the gym, right? But what they're missing out on is like the much more important, my life in general is going to be so much better by being able to do this and
Mhm.
function
You had a
function
really good
well.
point. You had a really good point because so many people go to the gym just to look better, to
Hmm.
be sexy, type of a thing. But that really, and it's a great benefit or byproduct of it for sure. But I think that and man, that is a big dysfunction in the fitness industry. All about like how low body fat can I have, how ripped can I look, and it actually has nothing to do with health, a healthy mind, or a healthy body. It
Yeah.
actually can be quite the antithesis of that
Yes.
particular thing. And again, just because you have muscles are ripped or in good shape doesn't necessarily mean you're out of whack hormonally or mentally or physically. But a lot of times when you have an it's just an over obsession or emphasis, which is like, how do I look? It can become the enemy of actually being healthy and performing optimally, you know? And so it's a really interesting point that you brought up. But man, there's nothing that I guess just drives me now to the gym more than anything. It's like I want to be in this for the long haul, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know you've won? Like when it comes to health and fitness or anything. Like if you're a businessman and you make a lot of money, but you lost it really fast, like no one's going to invite you to that conference. They're like, oh,
Right.
you built money really fast, but you lost it all. You know, like what actually is remarkable is when somebody they obtain something and they maintain it for the long haul. They have longevity.
Yeah.
So whether it's wealth or whether it's business, relationships, like what's remarkable, somebody could have like a really spicy and fun marriage for a year or two. Okay, cool. But hey, it's the longevity in a marriage where we would say, hey, let's talk to that person. That's the
Right.
remarkable quality.
The
The
people
same
who
is
last 20, 30, 40 years, I'm like, tell me your secrets.
tell me your secrets. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, so that's one of the compelling things for me. Like, why do I do what I do? I want to be in this for the long haul. I want to
Yeah.
be lifting, and sure, goals can change. You can, as you age, you may not be able to lift as heavy as you did at some
Right.
point or whatever, but you're staying in the game. You're working out hard, and you'd be amazed too. Like there are people. I was just reading a study of there was a study done where 80 and 90-year-olds just started strength training and all of their health markers, all of them improved. Like they actually
That's amazing.
gained a significant amount of muscle at 80 and 90 years of age just from strength training. All their health
So
markers
it's
improved.
possible, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly. No matter
And
what age.
it is possible.
So I was reading recently a book by Peter. Atia, I think is how you say his last name. Could have that wrong, but his book's entitled Outlive, all about longevity. It's a great book.
Ooh.
And yeah, you should totally get it.
I may
Lot
or
of
may
back,
not be writing that down.
I saw you pick up your pen. That's why I said that, I think. But he explores, this isn't the only thing he explores, but he explores the connection between strength training and longevity. And he emphasizes that maintaining muscle strength and mass is critical for your overall health and a longer lifespan. Matter of fact, he said that if you don't strength train, you are cutting years of life off of your lifespan.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I can believe that.
Strength training is that fundamental. And he gave a breakdown of like at a certain age, and genetically, this just depends largely on your genetics, but like sometimes for some people, it's, they start to see this in their 30s, some in 40s, some into their 50s. But you actually just about every decade lose about 3 to 8% of muscle mass every decade. Now, what's interesting is that we lose strength at a faster rate than we lose muscle mass. You
Correct.
actually lose strength first before you lose the mass. You lose power before you lose strength. So like you lose power really fast.
Really
then
fast if you do
falls
not
off
maintain that. Yeah.
at a pretty fast rate. And then it's the muscle mass. But what happens is that a man, by the time that they're in their late 60s or 70s, can have lost up to 30% of their muscle mass and over half of what they used to be able to do in their strength. And then when it comes to like that quick velocity, that power is pretty much non-existent at that point, pretty much gone. And all of that could be reversed or at least maintained or greatly reduced if they do that any type of strength training. So this is he made a point that strength training protects from age-related decline. And you think about it, when you get older in life, like you were talking about, getting down with your grandchildren, being able to just bend down and get on the floor and play with toys with them, just everyday functional stuff. You want to be able to do that. And so if you're thinking about like, man, I want to do that, but I don't want to do strength training. Strength training is not just for the elite athlete. It's for everyday people. It's helping you move. Think about
everyday
this.
People.
If I do this every week where I'm just going to use the core lifts here. Like I'm doing full range bench press, full range shoulder press, full range squat, full range deadlift, maybe some variations of those movements. I'm basically thinking through, and maybe like weighted pull-ups or something like that, or just body weight pull-ups. But I'm basically thinking through every way the body has hinges or movements. And I'm moving to a full range of motion with heavy weight. So what that's going to do is it's going to work on my mobility, though strength training doesn't directly work on mobility. It does actually support it if you do full range of motion. It works on balance. It works on balance and stability because you're holding this weight. A lot of strength training is free weight. And I'm doing all of that with load. So I'm increasing my strength. So you think about everything that you would do in life, flexibility, mobility, agility, moving things with my body. If I just have just 2 to 4 times a week, I'm just hitting my strength training. I'm not training for a powerlifting meet. I'm just trying to get a little bit better. I'm trying to push myself. It's going to protect against that age-related decline. And Peter actually has a ton of details in his book. So I'd highly recommend those who are listening to get that book. Anything that you wanted to add to that? I know you already made mention.
No, I was thinking about a couple of things that you said. Notating on the fact that people think that you have to work out so many times a week. But what you said, 2 to 4 times a week, makes a significant difference, is super true. I tell my clients all the time, they're like, I'm going to be in here 6 days a week. And I'm like, you're going to burn yourself out. And I'm like, how about we just start with 3 to 4 times a week? Like that's solid. And depending on what their goals specifically are, I think like that's a really good place to be. But people think they have to put all this time and effort in when it's probably about 2/3 of what they think they got to put in, maybe half, depending on the person. because there is such thing as overtraining and exhausting your body and not being able to recover well, which is a whole nother podcast. But then what you were also saying about being able to do those functional lifts, the overhead lift, the chest press, things like that. I was thinking about one of my clients came to me and was like, I just want to be able to put my suitcase up in the cargo portion of the plane when my husband and I travel. Like, I can't do that now. And I'm like, cool. We're going to be able to get you to put your 30-pound suitcase up in that cargo hold, and that you can do it by yourself. And she's like, she's not an old lady. She's up there, but there's absolutely no reason why she cannot eventually get to that. And she just wants the independence of being able to do that. And I think about, like chest presses, the basic functional movement of if you're on the floor playing with your kid, you got to use your arms to push yourself up to be able to stand up. Squats, to be able to pull yourself up off the ground, to stand up. Deadlifts, to be able to grab something from the ground, stand up without pulling your back. Snow shoveling without having a back injury. Like, anybody in the Northeast, raise your hand with me. We love snow shoveling.
We people in Georgia, at least where I live now, we're like, snow shoveling? What's that?
Yeah, anyways, y'all, I won't comment on that.
Yeah.
Everybody who freaks out when they see a little bit of snow in the South, crack me up.
Yeah, we were just getting ready to lose everybody from Georgia from the podcast. They're like, nope, I'm done.
Sorry.
Yes. So that's a big point. Peter hits on that. A couple other things that Peter hits I just want to knock through real quick is we touched on this. It enhances metabolic health. He talks about bone health in the book as well. You touched on this just now, but functional independence. When you get older, you can do everyday stuff without having assistance. And this becomes increasingly hard as you get older. Some people have to go into an assisted living situation because they can't do those sort of things. Now, I'm not trying to say that strength training is the miracle drug that's going to keep everybody from the situation. You can strength train your whole life and still end up in something like this. But there's definitely a reducing risk of it if there's this regular training in this particular way. Improved cognitive function is something that Peter said. We touched on cardiovascular health, but he also talks about that in his book. He said, while primarily associated with aerobic exercise and strength training can have great benefits for cardiovascular health, engaging in resistance training influences various cardiovascular markers such as blood pressure, lipid profile, vascular function, reducing risk in cardiovascular disease. The reason I bring that up is that that's the 4 horsemen of how most people die. Like, in the top 4 is cardiovascular disease.
Yep.
And so just doing this consistently greatly reduces your risk. And he actually details that, and actually quite a bit of detail, which is fascinating. So, but that's what he said on the strength training part that I thought I wanted to implement. So let's close out real quickly. We'll just take like 5 minutes. Maybe we'll do another episode on the mental benefits. But here's a couple of things that we could see. First, and I think this is just so intuitive, but it needs to be said, it just improves your self-esteem. Like, I know for me, when you get stronger and look stronger, which doesn't always happen at the same time, but usually if you lift heavy long enough, you will get stronger and you also look stronger as well. There's a confidence that you gain. You just hold your body differently. You feel better, going back to the first point. And not only is there physiological changes, there's a psychological shift that begins to change everything. And you think about it, if you feel and look stronger and it changes your persona, the way you feel, the way you hold yourself, it actually could change or bring to you opportunities that you would have not had otherwise. Like, I know, like, I've had opportunities just because of the way I portray myself in confidence.
Yes.
It's almost kind of like, I'm not trying to sound like weird here, but there's this positive vibe that comes from you when you're confident, both physically and mentally. When you're mentally strong, physically strong, it attracts opportunities and that you wouldn't have otherwise if you were slothful in your mind, you were out of shape physically. And so just this action can actually change your whole self image and self esteem. It's so important.
Yeah. And to add to that, um, I think what people don't realize is strength training, and this building of confidence over time, because you're keeping this essential promise to yourself. Like, you have built up this healthy habit and you've made it a regular part of your lifestyle. You see the positive benefits, you see what you're capable of, and it's a complete mental mind shift. I know for me, man, I look back at 22-year-old version of myself. I had no self-esteem whatsoever. I was constantly disappointing myself. I would break promises to myself. Therefore, I would break promises to other people, because when you don't have a self-respect, your self-respect is inwardly is going to decline first. But then you portray this, again, kind of what you said, this energy that, like, then people kind of are like, oh, okay, like, she doesn't respect herself. Like, why should I respect her, kind of thing. And in reverse, when you build this self-confidence of knowing what you're capable of showing up for yourself, of building these healthy habits, like you said, people see that. And people want to be a part of that. People want to be around people with healthy habits, mental healthy habits, physical healthy habits, emotionally healthy habits. The list goes on. And it is really true that energy attracts energy, and especially positive energy attracts people who might not be necessarily positive people, but they want to be. And you open yourself to doors of good and new friendships, to good and new opportunities. When you're showing up for yourself, employers see that. And like you said, people that have opportunities to give see that. And you can change your life merely, and it almost sounds silly by saying it, but by putting your physical health as a priority and your mental health as a priority, you literally can change your life. And
Yes.
people
Yes.
don't always make that connection. But I want to say that it's a real thing. It is such a real thing.
Yes. Oh, I think how you were talking about how it could change your life. It can sound a little bit almost hyperbole, almost like
Yeah.
do squats, it'll change your life. You do squats, you're going to be rich,
I'll make a
and
t-shirt like that.
you're going to like, yeah, exactly. Do squats, get rich, or I don't know. I like this idea. This is good. I like that. But there's almost like
I see a merch line down the road.
We totally need to have this in our merch line. We tend to categorize things, right? But if we put them in different categories, but truly, like when we start to discipline ourselves in the area of strength, there's benefits that occur that affect us in every areas. And it's kind of like a domino effect. And we see that in strength training. And we see this domino effect in our mentality, improved self-esteem, reduced anxiety and depression. When stress is like just literally leaving the body, and anxiety is being worked out in a because anxiety affects your physical body. So working out, actually, it's not just I worked out, I sweated, I have a better perspective. Actually, something neurologically occurs when we work out and we lift heavy, especially with strength training. But because it does these things, both physically and psychologically, we actually improve our sleep quality just from this sort of things.
Oh, yeah.
And then also overall, just cognitive function, and a couple of things that we could throw in to wrap things up is it protects against like dementia and other brain diseases. There's so many benefits that strength training has for your mentality. So what we're saying to you guys in just wrapping up this conversation is that strength training is the key to life, period.
It's the key.
Maybe overstating a little bit, but seriously, it does help. It's almost this cascading type of effect where if you do get involved in strength training and it becomes something consistent, not something you do for, the quick fix. Hey, I'm trying to get the summer bod, let me do some training. But if you're saying, hey, I'm doing this to get in the game and stay in it for the rest of my life, you will have great, great benefits, both physically and mentally. So, Amber, would you like to close us out with any words of wisdom that will change our life forever?
Amber's words of wisdom. No, no, you're good.
If you had a proverb like some type of ancient proverb, I would be like, what? That is amazing. You must be ready.
Me with the Asian proverbs. No.
You could have ended with Nike. Just do it. There we go.
Just do it.
There you go.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny when you brought up the Nike stuff. I was like, oh, I'm wearing the right sweatshirt today.
I know. I didn't wear the Nike brand. I'm out of the loop here.
Catch up. Get with the program. No, I think I can just kind of pull in some of the same thoughts that you had. Is strength training is truly underrated, especially in our modern society, specifically where we're located here in America. People go for what's easy. People go for the least resistance, the convenient, the instant gratification stuff. And whether that's a quick fix diet, a quick fix 3-week to 20-pound weight loss program, or, well, we'll just touch in on it for a hot second, but like diet pills and things like that. But they miss what actually matters. And what actually matters is overall physical health in the long run, not just immediate fixes. And they miss all of the true good benefits of what strength training brings. And what I can just encourage people to do is research into it, read into it, maybe get a personal trainer, talk with somebody who has experience. Because if you are living your life the bare minimum of what you have to, then you're not living life. You are surviving. And I'm a personal believer in life is not meant to be survived. You're not supposed to be born and just make it through to death. You were created for a purpose, and you were created to thrive. You were created to love and enjoy life, and physical health is an essential part of that. And I can't express that with any more passion, because just, if you don't believe me, try it. Just go try it. I dare you.
Well, what you said, no matter what you want in life, if you don't have mental and physical health, everything is short-lived. If you have wealth, but you don't have the other, short-lived. You have relationships, you don't get to enjoy them if you don't have the other. It's kind of short-lived. So it's super vital. So hopefully, if you were sitting on the couch, like we said earlier, and you're hearing this episode, hopefully you got some good laughs, but also a passion for, or at least maybe not a passion, but a desire to say, hey, I need to get this incorporated into my daily life, which the next episode is going to be so helpful for you, because we're going to begin to go from, we just talked about benefits. We're going to move towards the mechanics of strength training, what it is particularly, how it's different from other modalities, and how to build out a strength training cycle or program that you can implement. And we'll give you a lot of ideas. We'll talk about, this won't all be in one episode. We'll do several episodes. So we're super excited. So thank you for joining us for this episode of the Mind and Body Podcast. We'll see you guys later.